We continue our series looking at the Spurs and what they should do next season, and we have a special guest from the NBA 2K League.
You are Locked On Spurs, your daily San Antonio Spurs podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, this is Chris Sabat, and you're listening to Locked On Spurs with Jeff Garcia.
Welcome back to Locked On Spurs right here on the Locked On NBA Network. I am your host, Jeff Garcia, Spurs writer for Kens 5 San Antonio. Glad to have you back. Hey, we're part of the Locked On NBA Network, available on YouTube, the Kens 5 Plus app, and many other platforms. Hope you had a great weekend, and you're in for a treat today. We have two guests right here on Locked On Spurs. First guest is my colleague at Kens 5. He is Tom Petrini. We're going to be continuing our three-part series, making the case, should the Spurs retool ahead of next season? And then we're going to bring in our special guest. He is the head coach of Hawks Talons Gaming, Coach Maelo. Let's go ahead and start this show off with my good friend, Tom Petrini. Tom, welcome back to Locked On Spurs.
Pepe, what's going on, baby? How you doing?
I'm glad you kept your alarm on. I'm glad you did that.
Yeah, man, I'm sorry, dude. You know how it is. I was telling Jeff before the show, I was supposed to be on yesterday.
Friday show. Last week, Friday, yeah.
And, I started exercising after months of being lazy, and my body just shut down completely. It was like, alarm? That's not an alarm. You got to keep sleeping, Mo. So, Jeff, apologies, but thank you for graciously having me back on today. I appreciate it. I appreciate your understanding. You're a very understanding friend.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you're on, because I think you were going to have last Friday's rundown, which was the part one of a three-part series, making the case, what the Spurs should do. So I thought I was going to give you kind of like the layup one, which was the Spurs should just run it back. By the way, if you want to check out that show, everybody go back to last Friday's show, making the case, Spurs should run it back with the Rudy Campos. But why do I think making the case the Spurs should just retool fits better for you? I think you could provide a good case for that versus just running it back or blowing it up. So let's dive into it, Tom. Before we do that, make sure to follow Tom on Twitter at @RealTomPetrini, everybody. Why do you think the Spurs should just simply retool versus not blowing it up versus not running it back?
Well, I appreciate you saying that this topic fits me, because I agree and I like this topic.
Yeah. I thought this one was a better fit for you. Yeah.
And I think maybe the reason you think that is because there's some nuance here. And I like nuanced discussions.
Yes,
I'm not like a hot take artist. I'm not an extremist when it comes to my basketball positions. Usually I try to find a well-reasoned middle ground. And that's where we are today, discussing this option for the Spurs. And I think it's sort of the inevitable option for the Spurs this year. And I'll tell you why. The draft is going to determine how they retool, right? There are a lot of different things that could happen in this draft. We're hoping for that 14% Victor Wembanyama. Let's get it. Generational prospect. If you get him, you build a team around him. And I think what the Spurs have built in the last, really 8 years or so, since the last title, is they've built a collection of very solid players. Have they found the guy yet? No, I don't think so. So when they add that guy, they're going to have players around him that fit pretty well. But still, with a player like Victor Wembanyama, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you get Victor Wembanyama, your entire job as a GM becomes building a title contender around Victor Wembanyama.
Right.
So who do you then bring in? Because if you have Wemby, all of a sudden San Antonio becomes much more interesting to national media. I'm guessing a bit more interesting to free agents who could say, hey, playing with this really exciting rookie who's supposed to be a generational talent, I can help him. And, I can learn from Pop in what could be one of his last years coaching if he sticks around, which I think Pop will. It makes San Antonio a more attractive destination for really everybody. But even if you don't get Victor Wembanyama, right? Say you wind up with Scoot Henderson or
Right.
Amen Thompson or any of the talented guards in this class, like the guys from Arkansas, Anthony Black and Nick Smith, like you can get a point guard type player in this draft. I would be stoked to see Amen Thompson run point guard for this team.
Right.
So if you get that guy, then I think you have to do maybe a little bit less retooling because that player would slide in at point guard. Trey Jones, who I have really loved watching and has carved himself, I think, a solid NBA career here. I think he's like he could be the backup point guard eventually on a really good team, a contending team. So if you get your point guard of the future, Trey Jones slides to the bench, you slide the draft pick in, but so you'll have to do a little bit less maneuvering. Keldon Johnson, Devin Vassell, those guys, to me, those are secondary creators around a primary. And if you get your primary in this draft, I don't think you need to get rid of those guys. I think they fit in really well with what you're doing.
Yeah.
But then you got guys like McDermott and Devontae Graham and Kem Birch on the roster who you can use in any variety of bigger or smaller trades. So there's still a lot of flexibility here.
Yeah, retooling is definitely, if I had to run a triage or like a list, I would think running the back, in my opinion, would be the last because of the draft. I think that changes everything. But I think retooling is probably just the best way to go. We know that they're going to get a really good player. It just depends on 1 through 7.
Right.
Yeah, we know that. So
it's a question of how good and what position you get to play.
Exactly. And that's the thing. So I think the obvious with Wemby is if they get him and we're good to go, yay, we win the lottery. I think the retooling will be minimal because I think as presently constructed, the Spurs have pieces to build around him right now. You got yourself a point guard. You got yourself wings. You got yourself a small forward combo guys, and you got yourself some nice veterans to, help guide him. Gorgie, I think, would be instrumental with Wemby as far as mentoring him. So I think the retooling will be minimal. I think the retooling maybe takes a step forward if it's Scoot or Brandon Miller or one of the Thompson kids. Then you might have to do. Would you say this, Tom? Retooling borderline blowing it up if it's anybody else but Wemby? Hey, I want to talk to you about PrizePicks. Did you know PrizePicks has a new $1 million daily Superflex promotion going on right now with the NBA playoffs full underway? Yeah, every day of the NBA playoffs / finals, one PrizePick user will win a chance to become a millionaire. One entry placed after 8 a.m. EST will be randomly selected each day. Whoever placed that entry will be given a 6 picks flex with the following payouts. 6 correct picks equals $1 million. 5 correct picks equal 80,000. 4 correct picks equal 16,000. Full details can be found at prizepicks.com/million. You must opt in at that link I just gave you to be eligible for the $1 million entry. And once you opt in, all you have to do is play the game like normal and you could be the lucky winner. Hey, that's exactly what PrizePick gives you. Hey, so what if you don't want to do that? But just how does it work? Well, you can pick 2 to 6 players, and if they want to score more than less than their PrizePick projection, you can win up to 25 times your money on any entry. You don't compete against anybody else. It's just you versus the projections available. PrizePicks offers projections on any sport that you watch: NBA, NFL, MLB, NHL, PGA, men's college basketball, disc golf, Eurobasket, cricket, and much, much more. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. Super easy to do. Safe and fast withdrawals. Currently in operation over 30 states and in Canada. Download PrizePicks app right now. Go to prizepicks.com to sign up to play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can get themselves a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code LOCKEDON. Basically, if you deposit $100, PrizePicks gives you $100. You deposit $50, PrizePicks gives you $50. Don't forget to enter promo code LOCKEDON at sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100.
I disagree. I think
Okay.
I personally think that there would be more impetus for let's win some games right now if you get
With Wemby.
Wemby.
Okay.
So like you bring Wembanyama in, and it's not like you're going to build a super team overnight, but you might start bringing in more veterans who are capable contributors, right? And I think you'd probably want a floor spacer and a floor general in the point guard position, and Trey Jones is one of the two, but I see him long term as more of a backup, and I think that Zach Collins I think is going to be the starting center for this team, even if you get Wemby, because Wemby wants to play the 4.
And what Wemby wants, Wemby's going to get.
Right, exactly. That's how this is, and the Spurs. I mean, it's not like a pampered diva thing. It's a good business management thing. Back in the day when it was Tim Duncan, what did Greg Popovich do? He ran the offense through Tim Duncan, and he ran the defense through Tim Duncan, and he also built all of that around Tim Duncan, right? So that's really the reason that I think that a move for Wemby would be a move toward a little more movement in terms of players who have become a part of the rotation. I think Keldon and Devin and really all of the guys on this team could play with a talent like Wemby, because he's a unicorn, he's an alien, and I think that they could play with a guy like Scoot or Amen Thompson too. It's really just like I said, how do you manage what's around those guys, and what do they need? And is there anything on this current team that becomes redundant, I guess? Yeah.
I think that's like a Romeo Langford. I think that'll become redundant.
Right.
Maybe Mamu becomes redundant at that point.
Because, right. It depends who they get, but like just with how long Romeo Langford has been here and how this season went for him, he's one of those. His whole career to this point has been, I wish he was healthy more so I could see more of him play. Because when I've seen him play, he's been really good. Solid defender. Pop at one point this season called him probably our best like guard wing defender. Like those are Greg Popovich's words, right? So you want to see a little bit more of him, but if you need the roster spot and you have a team that a serviceable veteran player wants to join, not just as a mentor, but as like a guy who will get you big buckets, then you probably have to say goodbye to Romeo Langford, unfortunately. But but you look at the roster, right, and you look at what they've done with the roster in recent years. So you've trading Josh Richardson, trading Thad Young, the expiring contracts that they've found good value in turning into first round picks. This year you've got Doug McDermott, very good veteran shooter, always a skill in demand, expiring contract. Devontae Graham, a little less accurate shooter, but a willing one, and at this point a veteran. He averaged 18 a game when he was in Charlotte. When he had that ultimate green light, he's a bucket getter. Expiring contract, and Kem Birch, who hasn't played, but that's another $7 million in total. That's like $33 million ish. Spurs are going to have between like 40, and they could create up to like $70 million in cap space.
Yeah, on top of what we already have already. So
right, so there's going to be a huge opportunity for them to add talent and to make moves, and to they could also absorb bad salary and take draft picks if that's what they want to do. They got that flexibility. So
yeah, absolutely.
So there will be some amount of retooling. It's just a matter of what does it look like.
He is Tom Petrini with Ken's 5. Make sure to follow him on Twitter at Real Tom Petrini. And we're discussing part 2 of the Make the Case series, why the Spurs should just retool versus running it back versus blowing it all up. See, I hear everything, and I get it. And you want that Wemby vibes to be coming the Spurs way. I get that. My thing though is that I think there might be. I don't want to say a rebuild, but I mean major retool. Like say major is even too strong a word. I would say bigger retooling with with capital letters. If it's not Wemby, if it's Scoot, because I feel like, for example, let's use one of the Thompson kids. Pick one. I don't care. Aman, or Asar. It just feels like they're just a duplicate of Keldon and Devin and Sohan.
So if it's Asar Thompson,
yeah.
If it's Asar Thompson, then those skills become. If it's Asar Thompson, Brandon Miller, if it's somebody like that who plays on the wing, then all of the wings that the Spurs have assembled, there's some redundancy there.
Yeah.
Then I agree. You would see something bigger. I'm high on Amen Thompson being able to play point guard. So I think if the Spurs draft him, he's the starting point guard, or he becomes a starting point guard, midway through the year. Because he's got that big size, but he's played as a primary creator in the last year and shown like really, really high level passing in addition to crazy quick first step and like a 48-inch vertical. Crazy athlete. That's something that I don't think the Spurs really have as much of. In role-playing wings, they've got that in spades. So if they draft one of those, then I agree 100% more retooling. And it becomes a question of, is that player good enough to help you guys with the continued growth get to a place where you want to move your chips into the table and get veterans that can help you win? Or are you still in asset acquisition mode? Are you still looking at the top of the lottery next year? Are you going to use that cap space and those expiring contracts to bring in draft picks as opposed to a player who can help you win now?
Yeah.
And I think if you're drafting a more traditional wing, then that's where this stuff gets a lot more murky and interesting. And guys who we have come to know and love could be on the move.
Yep. I definitely agree with that. As far as retooling goes, no matter who they pick in this upcoming draft, I definitely would like to see them bring in more defensive-minded players. I don't care what position it is. I mean, maybe not the center of the big because of, because of Zach and if they get Wemby and whatnot. But I need more perimeter defense. We saw last year they were just getting cooked. I mean, it was just ridiculous. I tell the story, Tom, on Locked On Spurs. I don't think I've said it with you, where I recall last season watching a Spurs game. They were up by, I think, 15-ish. Comfortable lead. They looked pretty good. Like, okay, they're going to get one of those rare W's. Good. Tom, I walked to the kitchen, grabbed myself a snack, came back, and they were already down 5. That. I mean, it was just ridiculous. And I think I need more defensive-minded players on this roster. And Pop even said it too. He said defense seems, I mean, that was his biggest issue, was defense. He brought it up a lot towards the end of the season. Hey, everybody in San Antonio, did you stay up late last night? Perhaps went partying a little bit and maybe still recovering from Fiesta 2023? You need yourself a pick-me-up? Look no further than Mudslingers Drive-Thru Coffee. Mudslingers is a locally owned and independent coffee shop, and they're proud to make delicious coffee for our San Antonio community. They do it fast and friendly so you get on with your day. Whether you're in the mood for a latte cold brew or a Red Bull infused lightning bolt, I promise you, everybody, get that one. Get that one. Trust me, you'll be alert and awake immediately. They have drinks for every taste. Over 300 5-star reviews, can't be wrong. They also have a wide selection of dairy alternatives, low-calorie options, even caffeine-free drinks for when you just want to take it easy. Go to Mudslingers Drive-Thru Coffee for a tasty and convenient caffeine fix. located at 2404 Thousand Oaks Drive near 281 and 1604. They're open every day from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. You can find them on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok at Mudslinger STX. That's MUDSLINGER STX. Life is too short for bland coffee.
It goes fast in the modern NBA, man, doesn't it? But it goes especially fast in the modern NBA when you got a team full of, college age players in the NBA, right? Yeah. And my thinking when looking at this roster is you've got players who have the potential to be good defenders. And in some cases, as individuals are, right? Devin Vassell, even Trey Jones, who, in college, he was the ACC Defensive Player of the Year before he came out. Keldon Johnson had a rough year defensively. I think a lot of that has to do with his increased responsibility on offense. And, I see him as more of a secondary creator there. If he can play off ball on offense and make quick decisions and focus more of his energy on defense, I think he could be a good defender. Mm-hmm. And Sohan, obviously, his versatility, his ability to genuinely guard 1 through 5, just stick him on the other team's best player. That's why the Spurs drafted him so high.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I think with more time obviously you want to add talent when you can. But I also think that just giving this core time to grow and develop together, especially considering how young they are, I think that could pay dividends and could eventually turn this team into a pretty good defensive team. It's just about building that chemistry, the communication, and the good habits that make that happen.
And the case to retool, that's probably going to be the Spurs' best bet because, again, we know they're going to get a good player. We know a lot of these guys are going to come back seasoned, from Sohan to Vassell to Keldon, hopefully healthy as well. And, I think there will be some tinkering. I know it might break your heart, Tom. I don't think Mamu will be back. I don't think.
Don't say such a thing.
Unless they do the G League thing with him, they stash him there. I mean, there's your lifeline right there. I don't think
if Big Mamu isn't on the team, we riot.
We riot, yeah. Barlow likely we will go to the G League.
Yeah,
Langford. I don't think Langford will be back. Like they say, the best ability is availability. He's just never available. So I think you'll see those kind of moves. But I definitely would. I think I would even entertain, as far as retooling now. I'm not blowing it up. I would entertain flipping even McDermott, somewhere mid-season. I would.
I think flipping Doug McDermott and Devontae Graham.
Yeah,
I mean, I very much see that happening. If not before the start of the season, then by the deadline. It's become this team's MO really to get those veterans who, every team needs veteran presence, right? Every team needs a guy who's been around the league, who knows those habits, who knows, the off-court stuff, how to prepare for a game, all of that, to show those young guys to lead by example, right? Yeah. For many years, they had, a historic trio and more of veteran players. It was just veteran players. Mm-hmm. It was veterans teaching other veterans. Since then, they have been able to get that veteran leadership. Obviously, it's not the same as Tim and Tony and Manu and everybody else, but get veteran leadership from guys who come in, become a part of the system, show these kids the way, and then move on and bring more draft picks that turn into more kids.
Yeah.
And, and then the Spurs get another veteran, either through one of those trades or as a free agent, and bring them in, have them do their thing, ship them out, get more draft picks. And now that, Doug McDermott is in that last year of his contract. I remember you thinking around the trade deadline last year that there was a good chance he would be out the door, and I agreed there. I mean, it seemed like the kind of thing that very easily could happen. It wouldn't have shocked me a bit.
Right.
It didn't, but now that he's entering the last year of his deal, I would go so far as to say it would surprise me if he was on the roster at the end of the trade deadline.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I would be surprised. But there's always this too, and I think, I'll bring this up with whoever's going to tackle the next, the last part of this, blowing it all up. But as far as retooling and blowing it up, when does that stop? Because eventually, Tom, they have to say, okay, we have to stop tinkering with this. We got to let these kids cook together, for an extended period of time. You can't have a midway trade like we saw with DeJounte and Derek, with Bryn years ago. Those big roster moves where they have to just readjust. I mean, we saw that last year. Granted, it was injury hit, but so many lineups being shuffled in and out, weekly, daily, monthly. Like, when will Tom Petrini say, you know what, Spurs, y'all got to chill on this rebuild already? Okay, we get it. We got it. You got your Wemby, you got your Scoot, whoever. You got one of the Thompson kids. Okay, let's just go. And I think
so. Let's use a construction analogy here. When you're rebuilding something, the first step is, like say it's a house that has really nice bones.
Yeah.
What does that mean? It means you're ripping it down to the studs, right? You are removing everything in there and starting as fresh as possible, right? And sometimes you even got to go all the way down to the foundation, right? And because there could be problems with it, or it's not set yet. Once the foundation is set, that's when you start building. That's when rebuilding becomes building. And so that's my answer. I think once the foundation of this team is set, and this draft could do a lot in setting that foundation, that's when, because I don't think fans, I don't think players, I don't think anybody in San Antonio wants to see another season where, for much of it, you're rooting for the best possible draft slot, not winning the most games.
Yeah.
A lot of people understood that was a necessary thing this year, but it wasn't fun for a lot of people. And it's more than not being fun. You want to help these guys. You want to be a winner sooner than later, right? It's very simple. So I think that if the Spurs can get a foundational piece in this upcoming draft, then they can, really start putting their best foot forward. And I think this team left a lot of wins on the table this year.
Oh, I agree. I definitely agree.
So add that top level talent, add another year of getting your heads together and getting on the same page and growing physically and growing mentally. I think it could be a significant jump for this team in terms of results. And if not in terms of results, then certainly in terms of moving in the right direction. Like, it starts to resemble a house, at least, not just like an empty lot, right? So, yeah, and I really don't,
because then I think
as some fans think.
And because I think you're putting well, I mean, granted, this is like a maybe a little bit of a reach, but then you're like Houston. How many top 5 picks they've had in the past few years, and they just can't get going. I think if anybody had a case to perhaps blowing it up, may have been them, even though they've had, top picks, because it just wasn't working. Now, granted, we'll see if it just was a coaching issue. We'll see if Ime will turn that around, but you don't want the Spurs to fall into that path where they're just getting all these acquisition assets and getting top picks, and then the product come season time is just not there. We're talking with Tom Petrini right here on Locked On Spurs. He's with Ken's 5. Follow him on Twitter at Real Tom Petrini. Tom, let's go to wrap up this chat about retooling and perhaps this being the best case for the Spurs this offseason moving into next season. How would you sum it up? Go ahead and make your case why the Spurs should just retool.
My case is that it's somewhat inevitable, and they have the cap space and the expiring contracts and the motivation to build around whoever they draft, whatever that player needs. That's as simple as I can distill it. And I think that's going to happen. And it just becomes a question of what form that takes.
I'm gonna have fun with you right now. If you let's just say like you were on last week and you showed up to take on part one, which was running it back only, no major roster moves, nothing, not even using their draft capital or all that cash they got. What would have been your case that would have been the best approach? That is the best approach for the Spurs. It's just running it back.
I would have defined it so that these little tweaks and things didn't really count as retooling. That's the only way I would have gotten through that.
Yeah. The guest that took on that topic, it was very similar to that. Very like, well, it's okay, bye, Mom or Langford, but that's about it. Okay, we're done. No major tooling.
Right.
Because I think with go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. When you said retooling, I thought you meant blowing it up. So I was glad when you clarified, and I was like, okay, because I definitely don't think that one, but yeah, I think somewhere in the middle, because that's the thing, man. The binary is good for argument shows, but really, it's always going to be somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, well, maybe it lucked out then that you
totally
couldn't make it last week. Yeah, you took part two, which is retooling, and I was thinking I think Tom would like this one because it's a little kind of a layup. Just run it back. Yeah, you get a Wemby, run it back. What they got? You got Scoot, run it back. You got Asar, run it back. But now you think about it, yeah, maybe it will be a lot more difficult if they just run it back with their draft pick. He is Tom Petrini. Follow him on Twitter at Real Tom Petrini, and check out kensfi.com/Spurs. That's where you can find me and Tom catching you up on all things San Antonio Spurs in this offseason. The draft lottery is almost here. Few more days. Just hang on tight. It'll get exciting soon. But we have all the latest covered there from coaching rumors. Yes, Raptors are looking at Mitch Johnson and former assistant coach Becky Hammond for their job. And also some bad news come the Austin Spurs way. A guard there got disqualified from the G League for anti-drug program violation. Read all about that and much, much more. You know what I hated to do last week, Tom? But I just found it interesting. I had a a very short little thing on kensfi.com/Spurs about Tracy McGrady and reliving the moment where he just detonated on the Spurs in 2004. Remember that? 13 points and 33. They had video of it, and I was rewatching it, and I just well, there goes the wounds now. They're opened right up again. That was just brutal.
Dude, you mentioned the lottery coming up soon. Have you ever been this nervous about ping pong balls in your life? No. Genuinely, I'm up at night sometimes just thinking about man,
it's been a while.
This could go really, really well or not as well.
Not as
but
well.
Still
yeah,
good,
it's been a while.
But the disappointment of not getting the best possible outcome here is what I think is going to get.
Let me. I know the obvious answer. The Spurs win it all. Everybody's rejoicing. Tom is celebrating in Austin and San Antonio. Okay, we get that. How will you react though if the ping pong ball comes up and you hear and pick a number 3 of the Spurs? What's going to be your reaction?
3? I'm fine with 3.
You're 3? Okay, you're fine with 3. You're not celebrating. You're not honking your car, or nothing like that.
Top 2. We're honking down Commerce. I am petitioning the bosses. I'm like, I need to be at a sports bar on Commerce while this is happening so I can report from the scene,
Yeah.
But top 3 pick, because I love Amen Thompson. I've heard the Spurs are high on Amen Thompson. I would be really happy with that, because at 3 you're still getting a really excellent player. I know there's a lot of talk about these top 2. After 3, I'm a little less pleased. And again, you're gonna get a really good player, but
You're just
I
you're not
really
getting
love
that.
my top 3 in this draft is really can't miss talent. So I'm gonna be happy with the top 3.
Yeah, I don't know how I'm going to react if it's 4 or down. I think everybody collectively in San Antonio is going to be flipping tables if it's 7. I think it's going to be. We did all that for that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
7% chance, but
yeah,
that 7% is scary.
But it's there. Yeah, I mean, as you know, we know, the listeners know, Tom, the Spurs have a bigger shot at missing and not winning the lottery at completely.
Right.
And getting 7 or no, what is it? I think 6 is their highest picks. You tweeted that recently. I remember that.
Their highest individual likelihood is the 6th pick. It's like 26%. But they have a 27.4% chance of getting a top 2 pick. So it's likelier that they'll get a top 2 pick than they'll get the 6th pick. But it's all math at this point.
Light your candles, Spurs fans. Light the candles.
If somebody told you, though, if you just got to have one crappy year of your life and then you get a 14% chance at winning a lottery that will add $500 million to your value,
you roll the dice.
100%. And if not, you get a nice little consolation prize. Yeah, give me a crappy year, bro. Absolutely. 100%. I'm not even thinking about it.
I know. Well, we'll definitely find out in just a few short days if the Spurs' fortunes change overnight. All right, don't go anywhere. Up next is our special guest. He is Coach Maelo. He is the head coach for Hawks Talons GC. He's stopping by on this episode of Locked On Spurs to catch you up on the NBA 2K League, what's going on with him. And as a head coach, guess what? He shares something with Coach Popovich. Stay right here, and we'll bring in Coach Maelo. All right, let's go and bring in our next guest. He is the head coach for Hawks Talons Gaming. He is Coach Maelo, a.k.a. Ismael Diaz Tolentino. Coach, welcome to Locked On Spurs.
Okay, Jeff, thank you for having me, man. Always a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, I always enjoy chatting with you, the Hawks players. It's always good to catch up with you guys. Well, with the Spurs now officially in the offseason, I've been kind of sort of shifting over to the 2K League. So you'll be happy to know, Coach, you're the first one to come during this period now as I shift. So, but Coach, your team just finished the 3v3, tournament right there. Not the great outcome, but there was still a lot of great positives and building blocks for this team as this season is going on. Tell us about that experience and the team.
Yeah, so the team is doing well, man. Like we obviously we didn't perform as expected in the Switch tournament that just ended. We ended up getting eliminated in the first round of the bracket play, but the team really showed a lot of resilience. I feel like we still have another chance with the Steel tournament coming up, and we have been putting in the work to go out there and perform and make sure that we clinch that spot in the playoffs.
Right.
That was a goal that we set early on in the season, and still something that we're fighting for. So the focus remains. The guys understand. Sometimes you're going to win some, you're going to lose some. The first tournament this year, we ended up in the Final Four, and then the second tournament, we were supposed to kind of surpass that performance, and it didn't work out for us. It was like a little bit of adversity early in the season, and I think that's always something positive if we can actually flip it and just learn from it. So far, I think that's what we're doing. The guys have been even more focused than to begin the season with, and I feel like from now on it's going to be a lot of good news for Hawks Talon.
You mentioned right now, stepping stones, great performances. You accepted that the team perhaps still needs some work. You evaluate your team. How do you balance between the collective, getting the team better, and then individual play? Do you set time for individual chats, one-on-one work? How do you, as an NBA 2K League coach, have to balance that?
Yeah, so we do a lot of that. Within my style of coaching, I always have one-on-one with my players. Like every week, I would sit down and just talk to them, go through their game, go through their film, and kind of see like what we can improve on. And something that we have this year is that we also have a deeper team in a way. Like we have another guard that can play lead guard. So C's and MDS, like they're basically fighting for the position, and that keeps them on edge. And it's like a healthy competition within the team. I feel like that's something that's pushing both of them to be a little bit better. They work off each other, they work together, and they're just trying to get the position. It's the same thing that happens with like Hashad and Dewan or Grady, and like all of them. They know that they're good enough to be in the court. So it's like everyone's like actually improving every day and trying to get better because they want to help the team. So
I mean, that must be a great problem to have. Have C's and
amazing.
MDS. I mean, I'm pretty sure there's a lot of head coaches in the 2K league are probably jealous of that you have to deal with. Once again, we're talking with the Hawks Talons GC head coach. He is Coach Maelo Ismael Diaz. Make sure to follow Hawks Talons Gaming on Twitter at Hawks Talon GC. And we're talking about the his team, Hawks Talon. Speaking of MDS, high pick for you guys. You guys wanted him, the number 1 overall pick. How has he been performing? Well, what's a kind of a quick update on MDS?
Oh man, he's one of the best players ever to touch the game, in my opinion. Like that guy, he just does everything. Like within the 3v3 scene, like we already have one of the top guards in this game mode in C's. So he didn't come in and play guard, but I've used him as a lockdown. I used him as a power forward, and he actually has been performing at a high level. Like he gives us another dimension of like offensive game that we don't have, that we really can't get from any other player in the league, and he provides that. So just like having that versatility and knowing that I can throw him in there in any position and he's going to perform is just a blessing, to be honest. And just his demeanor and the way he handles himself around the team, him being so young, he's the youngest guy in the team, but he's also have like so many leadership skills that is actually surprising to see how well he's performing, not only on the court, but like off the court, and how he handles his teammates and the team duties and all that. He's a great guy, and I'm really proud of him.
Yeah, exactly. And for those of y'all who do not know, MDS, you can follow him on Twitter at 773MDS. He was Hawks Talons' number 1 overall pick in the recent 2K League draft. And by the way, congratulations on winning that lottery too. But how, going into that lottery, how high was he on y'all's draft board? Was he the target for you guys? Was it
he was always the guy.
Okay, he was the guy. Okay.
Yeah, he was always the guy.
You had discussions about that in the war room. We're looking at at your team. As mentioned, you mentioned right now that this team is still needs some retooling, some adjustments. What would you say that you would like to see this team improve upon as the season moves on?
I think one of the things that we have been struggling with the most is game management. Like we usually play really well. We're very consistent. The thing that we have been struggling with in the past tournaments is that we sometimes within the game, like we just can't figure out how just to take the game, end the game. So it's like late shot situations, late game situations. That's something that we have been working on, and just like kind of clean that up a little bit. And I think that's enough for us to be like a force to be reckoned with.
I in anticipation of talking with you, Coach, I had a chance to catch up with a couple of players not on your roster. So, and I was like, I want to get their thoughts because I'm going to be talking with Coach later on, and here we are. And so I wonder what they think. And I think Coach Maelo and the Hawks Talons organization would love to hear some of these comments. So I'll start off with Killy with Duke's Gaming. So I asked Killy recently, I said, Killy, I know you don't play with or for, Coach Maelo, but what have you heard? What do you have any comments about him? Obviously they were good comments, but I want to ask you this. He brought this up. He said he likes that you have play cards. Can you tell us about that? He said you have notes, cards, and he said that's what he likes about you and your organizational schemes. Can you talk to us about that aspect of your coaching style?
Yeah, no, like that. I feel like that's something that I really take a lot of pride in.
Yeah.
We do that, like we do it together as a unit. I wouldn't take all credit. Like I definitely involve all my players in that process.
Yeah.
Like we watch film, like we have probably like scouting reports on all the players and all the teams in the league. We constantly update that. Like we know what's gonna work against certain teams, and it's just a matter of like us performing on game day, you know.
Mhm.
But I feel like the better prepared we are for a game, the better chances we're gonna have to win it. And especially in this league where it's all mental, like everyone kind of knows what everyone does. So it's just making sure that you are like 100%, 100% like focused on that match, and like you know what they're gonna throw at you, and you just gotta execute. You know, I feel like that's the separation in the league, and that's something that I have been really trying to like improve on during my first
Mhm.
2 seasons.
You know, Coach Popovich also has cards too. Did you know that?
I didn't know that, but that's great.
Yeah, yeah. As a matter of fact, a few years ago, kind of like a fan, gift, if you will, or a fundraiser, they created NFTs for Spurs fans to buy based off his cards. So maybe
Oh,
you might
that's
want to
great.
dig into that. And Hawks Talon could get some fan interactions with that. Once again, we're talking with Hawks Talons GC head coach right here on Locked On Spurs. He is Coach Maelo Ismael Diaz. And yeah, we're catching up with about him and the NBA 2K League, especially how his team is doing. You can follow him on Twitter at MaeloDZT. That's MaeloDZT. Okay, so there is Kelly. So he has to say that about you. So then I spoke with Bucks Gaming's Cooks. So same question, hey Cooks, I know you don't play with or for Hawks Talon and Maelo, but you have any comments about Coach Maelo? And he goes, well, why? I go, well, I'm going to talk to him soon. And he goes, he calls you a very cool dude, but he has a message for you. Are you ready?
I'm ready. I'm ready.
He wants you to, and he wants you to abandon the Android. He says, why does Coach have an Android? Doesn't he know that it's 2023? Please, Jeff, tell him to get rid of the Android. Coach, talk to us about that. What is he talking about?
Man, I don't know why, but for some reason, these players in the 2K League, like they have an obsession with like Apple products. Like they love iPhone, and whoever has an Android is like outside of the group. Like like we are
Like they're not
discriminated.
cool, right?
Yeah, Android users are discriminated in the 2K League. I'm gonna say here, and yeah, it's like a running joke. Like my players make fun of me all the time because I have an Android. I have them like download WhatsApp. We have a group chat on WhatsApp, so it's
Yeah.
kind of different from what other teams do, and they kind of like just they talk to their friends in other teams, and it's like a running joke among in the league right now. But yeah, man, like I feel like my phone is probably the best phone in the market right now, and I'm not gonna go to iPhone because of Cooks and C's and those guys. So yeah, but that's funny
If
though.
if it's anything to you, Coach, when the 2K League was based in New York City for the first 3 years, and I would go to the games in person, and I would talk to the players, and they would tell me the exact same thing because I have an Android. I think it was Nick Artrell at that time. He
Yep.
was with Nets Gaming, helping them out, and we were chatting. And he saw me take out my phone, and he looked at me. He goes, "Jeff, what are you doing?" I go, "What are you talking
Yeah.
about?" He goes, "Why do you have an Android?" So then from that point, it took on. The players were like, "You have an Android? What's wrong with you?"
Yep. Yep. That's how it is. That's how it is.
But when you hear comments like that from people outside the organization, how does that make you feel as a head coach? And knowing that you're making an impact not just with Hawks Talon, but just an impact on the league.
Man, I'm like me coming from the community. Even though I came from like the international community, not as much as like the USA Pro Am
Yeah,
scene. For me, it's just like I feel good. Like I feel good that some of the top players in the league actually recognize my job, my work, that they see me and they respect what I'm doing here with Hawks Talon GC. And just getting the recognition from a player like Cooks, like he's a champion, Killy, one of the top 3v3 guards, like
yeah.
those guys having something nice to say about me means a lot. And I think it's just like like it just shows that my work is actually showing in other ways, that it's not just
Yeah.
in the game. And that's something that I'm really proud of.
And I know you're a busy man. You got to get back to work, so I don't want to keep you on too long. But I got to ask you this. It's kind of a broad question. Answer it as you feel fit. But how would you assess your team at this point of the season, as you and I are talking right now, we kind of hinted about it. You said there's some work to be done, but if you could project, it's the end of the season, and hopefully you guys are the last team standing with that title. What would it take to get to that goal? You mentioned game management. But what about off the court or on the court, in the locker room, community wise? What do you think needs to get there?
Yeah. So I feel like, first of all, like off the court, the team is really solid. Like that's something that I always really focus on with my groups. Like I want to make sure that they understand each other's motivations and things that drive them. So that's something that they already know. Like they play for each other, they play for their families, they play for all that. And they're like a really tight group right now. Like they really get along well. They do a lot of things together. They go out and eat together. I feel like on the court is where we need to continue working. Like I said before, game management is probably one of the things that we have to work on the most right now. We have to clean up a little bit of our defensive rotations too. But the communications are there, like the intentions are there. The guys understand what they have to do. It's just a matter of like getting the repetitions in. With 3v3, I feel like we are still one of the top teams in the league. Like we struggled last tournament. We lost a few games that we shouldn't have lost, and that ended up like coming back to haunt us. But in all honesty, I feel like we're still one of the top teams, and it's going to show in the next tournament for sure. And then when it comes to 5v5, a few months down the line, I feel like we have a really solid group. We have the number 1 pick in MDS and a guy that actually thrives in that game mode. So it's just a matter of us getting the repetitions and just like improving every game. When it comes to like end of the season goals, like of course we want a championship.
Right.
But for me right now, it's like since we missed this live bracket play in DC this tournament, for me it's like from now on we have to be in DC every single tournament and just playing for the money in each of all the tournaments that are coming. And I feel like that's something that my players also want. Like these guys, they play for these tournaments and this money, so it's something that's driving them as well. Like they missed out on a really good opportunity for us to like not only make some more money but actually clinch a playoff spot with a few weeks to spare. And I feel like that's just gonna translate to more motivation for them. And like now we have a chip on our shoulders. It's like we went from being one of the favorites to win it all in 3v3 to actually a team that's struggling and it's now playing the steal. So it's like that kind of storyline is something that it was a bad experience that we went through it. Everyone had like strong emotions about it, but now it's like, okay, it's our turn now to like be reborn and just like show everyone that we still belong in that group. And from now on, it's like it's Hawks Talon time.
Right. That should be in a T-shirt. Hawks Talon time. That really should. Hey, one more question, and I had it on my checklist, and I just overlooked it real fast here, so I'll just bring it up here. I get it. All your players, you love them. You want them to have success. But has there been a player that has really surprised you that maybe you didn't see it coming? Maybe you didn't see him be a defensive guy or an offensive guy or even a leader. And I know you mentioned MDS. You're surprised about his leadership, but has there been somebody else that's really made you feel like, wow? Like I didn't know he had it in him.
I mean, I could say something about all my players.
Right.
But like someone that has really, really surprised me this season is Hotshot. Like last year, he was in the roster. He was the center. He didn't play 3v3 last year because of different reasons. But like we didn't think he was gonna be this good in 3v3. Like coming into this year, he was a hey coach. Like I'm locked in. I want to play 3v3.
Yeah.
Even like since the first day of practice, like he showed up and he was actually performing better than anyone else in the team out of that power forward position. He ended up earning the position and he performed at the highest stage. Like he performed every single game. He was one of the better shooters in the league out of that position. And I feel like he was one of the 5 players or something like that actually averaged like a combined steal block per game in 3v3. So he was like performing on both sides of the floor after not playing a single 3v3 game last year, and that's something that actually showed me that he had a lot of things that he didn't show us last year, So like right now, I know like the potential that these guys have is just through the roof,
Yeah.
And I'm trying to find ways to like get it all out from all of them somehow this season.
Absolutely. He is Coach Maelo, head coach of the Hawks Talons GC of the NBA 2K League. You want to follow Hawks Talon right now on Twitter. That's at Hawks Talon GC, and head coach Maelo at MAELODZT. Coach, we thank you for taking some time out of your busy schedule to hop on for a chat, kind of a catch up with you. You know, you always have an open invitation, you and your crew. I think the PR staff at Hawks Talon know that they can tap me on the shoulder. They got my text, Coach, and they're asking me at least once a week, so I appreciate that. But you and your crew, everybody's always welcome to come here on Locked On Spurs, and make sure to follow Hawks Talons games on the NBA 2K League Twitch. I think y'all got to cover it on Twitch, YouTube, right? Like anybody can watch the games there, right? Right.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, they're really exciting, really fun. I miss them when they were in New York City. Going to check them out live, but I still tune in every once in a while on the Twitch site. He is, again, Coach Maelo of Hawks Talons GC. Hey, we thank you for making Locked On Spurs your first listen each and every day, free and available wherever you get podcasts. So for Tom Petrini and Coach Maelo, we're going to put a lock on this episode of Locked On Spurs.